Greg, if there's anything that all of us think about, whether we admit it or not, is whether there'll be any sentience, consciousness after we die. I've had these thoughts since I've been a pre-teenager.
So I.
Having been trained in the neurosciences, having a scientific background, when I really think about it, it just seems so incredibly illogical as we sit here in the physical world. As a theologian, I'm sure you believe in the afterlife. I'd like to know why.
Okay. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I also, from the time I was a little kid, my mom died when I was 2. Maybe that jarred me, but I always thought about death. I remember sitting in class in 2nd grade in Catholic school and thinking to myself that why are we talking about all these silly topics when the only thing that matters is that we're going to die? Our finitude is the most, important fact of our existence, I think. I believe in afterlife for several reasons. I'll start with this one. It seems to me that either life ends up being the most tragic story ever told or the most beautiful story ever told. And if death is the last word, it's just a tragic story. Good doesn't overcome evil. All the things we hope for and aspire towards and dream of, it all comes to nothing. The solar system dies a heat death. The whole universe dies a heat death, and that's it. And there's something in the human spirit that finds that objectionable. And what I'm wondering is, why do we find that objectionable? Why do we hunger for meaning, an ultimate meaning, not just a temporary meaning, but for our lives to matter in the long haul? It seems to me that if death ends everything, that nothing matters in the long haul.
Does that mean just because we're hungry, there will be food?
Well, one piece of evidence that there is some kind of food out there is that you're hungry for it. Nature, nowhere else do we have. In every other instance, I'll put it like this. In every other instance, whenever we have a hunger or a drive, there's an answer to it. So you have sex drives and there's sex. You long for air and there's air. You get thirsty and there's water. It'd be weird if creatures just naturally evolved and had these drives and these longings for which there is no answer. The fact that you have this hunger is one piece of evidence that there's something out there to answer it. And we hunger for our lives to count eternally and for a meaning that transcends this life. That's one piece of evidence, I think, of an afterlife. But I'll point to 2 other things. One is that there is, and I'm not an expert on this, but I've read a little bit on it, and there's some pretty impressive near-death experiences where people are able to report things that happen after they're technically brain dead, but they have these, experiences that they report conversations that happened, whatever.
Boy, as a neuroscientist, I would say they're all temporal lobe seizures or
possibly.
little blood constrictions, changing the chemistry of the brain. I mean, it's easy to. I hit my head on a door.
I gotcha.
I see some things.
Right. And the vague, I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. That can be explained that way. But when you get, we'd have to talk about each one of these on a case-by-case basis. But
I can wrap them all together and throw them all out.
Well, but you have to go on the basis of the evidence. As a scientist, you go on the basis of the evidence. And if there is information that someone acquired that they could not have acquired, unless the report of going out of the body and going over a couple of streets was true, that at least is impressive.
All right.
But
that's your second argument.
Okay, but I wouldn't leverage too much on that.
What's your third?
My third one is the resurrection of Jesus.
Okay.
And I feel like I have very good historical grounds for believing that, in fact, Jesus rose from the dead. And that's the main argument for me. The gospel message of the resurrection taps into this hunger and drive that I have, and there's a yesness that happens there. And so I feel warranted in believing that it doesn't end with the grave.
So you see the hunger being, in essence, the need, and the resurrection of Jesus being the proof, and then this side thing about near-death experience being kind of a little bit of sugar.
There's more to us than just
sugar
neurons.
on the side.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think there is adequate evidence to suggest that there's more to us than just neurons popping. There's some part of us that transcends that. That's where I go with the near-death experience. But the main thing is the hunger inside of us, and then the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus.